when I was in high school, I played football. And when I stopped playing, I had an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Because that's where I hung my hat.
Yep.
Right? I can't imagine playing in the NFL and then not going through an identity crisis and going through some type of depression before you were into your next thing. How did that work?
You know, the depression is deeper and deeper the further you go along. You know, from high school, you've only technically committed, you know, maybe 6-7 years of your life into this identity. And then by the time you get to college, that ramps up to about 11 years. And then if you make it to the pros, on average, it's about 2.5 years. You know, let's say you played 4 or 5 years like I did, right? Now you're looking at 17, 19 years of your life was kind of really put into this window of you've dedicated everything. And they say this, that what NFL players, professional athletes in general, when they leave the game and through identity crisis, is the same thing that happens when older people retire. And when older people retire, they've been on this job for 20 years, 30 years. And then when they retire, they go, wait, nobody needs me the same way. They're not counting on me. What do I do? My kids are grown. And you're going through this entire identity crisis, like, who am I? What am I? I woke up every day with a mission to go accomplish, you know, X, Y, and Z. And so the only difference is that you're 25, 26, 27 years old and you're going, wait a second, I poured everything I had into making it to the pros. And what did I sacrifice? You had to sacrifice something to gain something. And you sacrifice all the extracurriculars.
But now it's over.
And now it's over. And you're now stuck with, what do I do? How do I do it? You know, people see you a certain way. People only want to put you in a certain box, and you're trying to break out of that box.
So how'd you do that? How'd you go? First of all, you're done. So you're done
Yep.
with football. What are you getting into next? How long was that gap before you figured it out and you said, oh, this is my next chapter?
Yeah, I moved through pain is really what I did. In order for me to transition, I had to move through pain. I was down in the dumps. You know, I remember not wanting to leave my house. I would go out at nighttime so nobody would recognize me. Not that I was super famous, but in San Diego, when I retired, I went home. Like, it's just, people always ask me, man, you still play? You can still play? And I'm like, gosh, I don't want to answer this anymore. But what I did was I took a leap of faith. And even though I was feeling all of this sadness, I said, let me take the equity that I built up in my life so far, which was in sports, and let me try to leverage that. So I went to a local station in San Diego, NBC 739, and I asked, hey, can I do the Aztecs and the Chargers postgame show, and I'll do it for free as a broadcaster. And I knew that I didn't have a big enough name like some of the big Hall of Famers and playoff guys, or like my brother. So I had to figure out what I call the backdoor approach. And I needed to create some sort of internship for myself. So I did that. And in that
They
process,
let you do it.
They let me do it because I was doing it for free.
That's
right?
great.
Yeah, I had a little bit of money that I had saved up to where I'm like, all right, I'll just bet on myself. And so I then started to really kind of invest myself in growing there. It suffocated the pain a little bit because I was busy and I wasn't occupied with what I was going to do next. But that was a real part. And that time took about it took me about a year.
Until they started paying you.
Oh, no. It took me, I did 2 years for free. I worked for free for 2 years. And then my first job out of that was calling college football games. And I was making like $26,000.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because my buddy was going to work for Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be the CEO of the iPod. And he told him no.
Ooh.
And I said, why? And he said, because Steve Jobs is an asshole.
Ooh.
And I said, get out of my car. I literally told him to get out of my car.
You told Steve Jobs to get out of his car?
No, I told my friend to get out of the car because he said, because I told him I would have worked for Steve Jobs for free for 3 years just to be in the presence of greatness.
Yeah.
And that's what you did, but not to be in anybody's presence. You were willing to go to any length, no matter what, as long as it took to get to where you needed to be.
Yeah.
That is so impressive.
I appreciate that. I had a high school coach, Coach Duck. We call him Maurice Duckett. And he was like, how badly do you want it? How badly do you want it? How badly do you want it? He used to always ask that question. And that's how badly I wanted it. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it for free. And it's not lost on me because I think some people, well, you could do that. Yeah, I did. I had made, a decent amount of money. Not a lot. I was an undrafted free agent. So it's not like I was, balling in the millions or anything like that. But I just took what I had made, from the NFL, and I leveraged that on myself.
So you go ahead and you work for 2 years for free, and then you move over to this other place for $26,000 a year.
26 grand a year.
And then what happened?
I got married,
and then
I had a child.
And then good things started happening.
No, actually, no. No. After I got married and and had a child, I actually started running out of money. And the next year, I was making $28,500. And my money was just dwindling down. I had gotten down to my last $40,000 left in my bank account after playing in the NFL because I worked for free for 2 years. I had gotten married, kid on the way, kid was born then at that time, so now all of a sudden life just accelerated. Everything just started costing. At one point, I moved back in 2010. I had moved back to Crenshaw in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I'm living in my dad's house. I'm living in my dad's house, and I lived there for 6 years until I was able to kind of get back on my feet. With my wife and my kids. So my kids grew up part of their life. They grew up in the same home, which was also an honor. But they grew up in the home that I grew up in, and I remember my wife looking to me and going like, "Do you think you're chasing a pipe dream here? Like, you're going at it, but the bills are adding up. Stuff is stacking up on top of us." And I was like, all right, maybe you're right. And so I took a detour. I went to go sell artificial turf for a year. Went to go sell artificial turf, making $70,000 a year just so I could keep things moving forward because I wasn't making enough.
But you weren't doing the other stuff when you were selling the turf.
No. I told my wife that was it. I wasn't going to do the broadcasting thing anymore. I had spent enough time in it and just wasn't. It wasn't mathing.
So you spent a year doing that.
Yep. And then I hid from my wife. I gotten a call from my agents like, hey, there's this audition over at the NFL Network. And I was like, oh, shoot. And I'm supposed to go sell this turf. Let me just make a detour.
Yeah, F the turf.
Yeah. I sneak my suit into my car.
That's right.
I go do it. The audition, big names stacked up. I'm going, whew. I said, forget it. I'm just going to do it. I just threw everything I had into it. I walked out, went to go sell turf, more turf, try to go meet my appointments that I were late to. And I get a phone call about a week or two later saying, you got the job. And from that point, it's what started my entertainment career because the year after I got the NFL Network, I got American Ninja Warrior catapulted, and then it would have it that, years later, I would get my main, what to me was one of my biggest goals was to be on a talk show, was to get the talk and to be able to be one of the hosts of the talk.
We're out of time. Please subscribe on YouTube, click the thumbs up, and leave a comment. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify and leave a rating and a review. And share the We're Out of Time podcast with others you know who will get value out of it. See you next Tuesday.